There is a wonderful phenomenon in nature called color, and it is made up of light waves that we see with our eyes. What our eyes see as the color white is actually the presence of all the colors combined, and what our eyes see as the color black is actually the absence of all color. When white light is focused through a prism, the prism acts as a filter and separates all of the colors back into individual colors, creating what we see as a rainbow. The prism doesn't create the different colors, it just lets us see the colors that are already present in white light. Music acts much the same way as color, but instead of light waves that we see with our eyes, music has sound waves that we hear with our ears. Instruments with columns of air, strings, metal, wood, or vocal cords vibrate to create these sound waves that we call music. Instead of colors, we have pitches. But just as white light can be separated into all the separate colors that go into it, a pitch can be separated into all the separate notes that combine to make up that one pitch. When we hear a pitch, we aren't actually hearing one pitch, but a series of notes that combine to make that pitch. This is what we call the pitch's harmonic series. Hearing all the notes in our harmonic series combined as one pitch is similar to seeing all the colors of the rainbow combined as white light. Fundamentals and overtones. Our eyes are naturally drawn to certain colors, and similarly, our ears are naturally drawn to the lowest note of the harmonic series, and this is the pitch that we hear. This pitch is called the fundamental. All of the notes that make up the harmonic series above that pitch are also called overtones because they happen above or over the fundamental pitch. They can also be called partials because they are parts of a pitch. The more common of these overtones are called harmonics, and they are frequently played by certain instruments such as harps and guitars. If we relate this harmonic series to color, the fundamental would be the white light of a pitch that we actually hear, and the overtones would be the rainbow of individual notes that make up that pitch. The colors of the rainbow always appear in the same order: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Likewise, the notes of the harmonic series always occur in the same order of intervals. An interval is the distance between two notes, and it is measured in half steps. The intervals in the harmonic series occur in order of strongest to weakest intervals. The strongest of these is an octave, which is the note of the same name that occurs 12 half steps above the original pitch. So if you were to play a middle C on the piano, the octave above that would be the C above middle C. The second strongest interval is the interval of a fifth, which is 7 half steps above the original pitch. A fifth above C would be G, or do to so. The third strongest interval is the interval of a fourth, which is 5 half steps above the original pitch. A fourth above C would be F. All of these very strong intervals are called perfect intervals, and they are so strong that they are easily recognizable to the human ear. You would liken them to the primary colors of red, yellow, and blue. These three intervals are referred to as a perfect octave, perfect fifth, and a perfect fourth when they have the number of half steps given above. Every perfect interval can be made larger by a half step to become what is called an augmented interval, or smaller by a half step to become what is called a diminished interval. But these intervals do not occur in the harmonic series. Only the perfect form of these intervals of an octave, fifth, and fourth occur in the harmonic series. Today we'll be using the pitch F sharp 3 to understand the harmonic series. How high or low a pitch is can be measured by its frequency, and its unit of measurement is called hertz. The higher the hertz number, or Hz, the higher the pitch. Multiplying the frequency of the fundamental pitch by 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on provides us with the frequencies that are found in the harmonic series of that fundamental pitch. For instance, 185 multiplied by 2 is 370, which happens to be the interval of an octave, F sharp 3 to F sharp 4. 185 times 3 gives us 555, which is a perfect fifth from that fundamental. F sharp 3, C sharp 4. In solfege terms, this is do to so. The relationship of octaves is very important in the harmonic series. Can you identify any more octaves? What is the mathematical relationship between frequencies when octaves are created? As you can see, anytime a number is doubled, you arrive at its octave. 370 times 2 is 740. F sharp 4 and F sharp 5. 740 multiplied by 2, 1480. F sharp 5 and F sharp 6. 1480 times 2 is 2960. F sharp 6 and F sharp 7. And the pattern continues into infinity. To demonstrate the harmonic series present in the male voice, we'll use an EQ meter to analyze the frequencies present in the vowel e. In this first looped example, we can see all of the different frequencies that make up the sound that we hear. Just as all the colors of the rainbow are present in white light, all of these overtones are present in the fundamental pitch F sharp 3, sounding at 185 Hertz. There it is. Using a parametric EQ, we can amplify the frequencies of the harmonic series one at a time, so you can hear how all of the different pitches are present just by singing one pitch. It's as if a complete choir of singers exists in every note that you sing. Here, you can see how we're amplifying the fundamental pitch. As the parametric EQ sweeps through the frequency band, notice how only the pitches of the harmonic series are amplified. There's the next octave at 370 Hertz, sweeping up to 555 Hertz, the C sharp. Now sweeping up to our next octave, which is at a less volume than the others. Here's 740. There's our do. Moving on up to 925. This one's less present, but there it is. Which solfege syllable is that? It's the third of the chord. Moving on up. 1110 up to our C sharp. And as you go higher, you can see all of these numbers get closer and closer together, and we begin sweeping through just about every note in the scale. That one's very present in this voice. 1665, that G sharp. But just next to it is that major third again, And as we continue on, the pitches get closer and closer together. And it locks in at the octave again. 2960. Back up. It's not very present, that octave. All right, so sweeping through all of these different harmonics, we can see that the fundamental, the octave, the fifth, and then we've got some lesser ones, and then I think it's that G sharp that's very present in this voice. Let's just go check it out. That's the re to the do. Let's illustrate the same principle with another voice. Here, without any amplification, you can see that the fifth of the chord, that fifth above the fundamental, that C sharp, is really popping out. You can hear that very present in this voice. It's even greater than the fundamental itself. So here's your F sharp, the F sharp above that, and then that C sharp is really present. In this voice, we really can see all of the individual overtones at these very defined peaks right here. So let's get our parametric EQ back out, and let's amplify some of these peaks. This will probably be a better illustration than the last. Okay, we've got a nice defined spot. So let's amplify the fundamental pitch right there. You can really hear that F sharp now. Moving up to the next octave. Okay, F sharp 4 pops out. Let's go to that already present C sharp. It's really gonna peak. Yeah, very present. Moving on to the next octave at 550. I'm sorry, 740. You can hear it coming in. Now up to the A sharp. A third of the chord. Now up to 1110. There's our C sharp. Now moving slowly through all of these closer notes. See if we can find the E, which is te. 1295. There it is. That's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, te. Not T, but te. And then here's the octave again. At 1480. Going on up. There's re. Mi. So. Back up to the octave again. There's that G sharp that was present in the last voice. So a lot of overtones up there. Okay, here's our next voice. All right, you can see we've got quite a bit, again, of that C sharp 4 right in there. A little more overtone, a little more octave than the last voice, but still quite a present fifth. So I'll let you listen to it and see if you can hear it. There's no amplification on this, and it's already very present. So there's our F sharp. It's interesting here that the fundamental is so much softer than the first partial. Here's our two F sharps right there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when we amplify these two peaks right here. And I'm also very curious to know what this is going to be over here. So let's get out the parametric EQ and take a sweep. There's that fundamental. You can barely hear it when it's not there. Here it is coming back in. Moving up to the next octave. Here is that very present fifth. It's jumping off the scale there. Sweeping through the octaves. There's our third. There's our fifth. There's that flat 7. The octave. Wow, that's so interesting that that G sharp, that second scale degree, is very present in this voice and the last two. There's our third. And then, of course, sweeping through the high registers. There's again that re. Wow, the octave above that. Very interesting. Okay. Okay, so here's our last voice. And I think you'll all recognize this voice when we hear it. And so looking at this one, there is our fundamental. Very similar to the last two. Our octave is higher than the first fundamental, or the fundamental there. There's our first overtone, first partial. Here's that fifth. As we scan through this, right, similar to the other voices, it takes a big dip, and then we come back up right around that, probably that G sharp again. So let's get the parametric EQ out. One thing I want to point out is, you've heard it in class, but this voice has got the characteristic buzz to it. I want you to listen to the higher frequencies and see if you can hear the buzz. It's like a real buzziness up here. And that's that hard palate sound. The sound is just going right through the hard palate and engaging that zygomatic pull that we talk about in class. So let's get out the parametric EQ here and sweep through some of these bands. There's their fundamental pitch. Just locks right in, moving up to the first partial. There's our octave. There's our fifth. There's our octave. Here are some of the lesser ones. There's that third. The fifth again. The flat 7. The octave. There's that G sharp that was very present in the other voices. Wow, that's a big one right there. That A sharp is really popping. Now, can you hear how the buzz is just really coming through up here? The more you practice getting it into that hey spot, these are the frequencies. Wow, listen to that one. These are the frequencies that you are developing in your voice. And the more of these that you can get going, the more resonant of a sound you're going to have. Yeah, so it's really right in this corridor right here between the 2000 and the 5000 band. So really interesting. That's about 4 octaves higher than our fundamental. Finally, what I want to show you, shrinking this, getting the parametric EQ out of the way, is a demonstration of how each of the individual overtones in isolation add up to create the whole. And again, I'll go back to that rainbow metaphor, how all the different colors of the rainbow, basically when you add them together, equal white light. You put all those colors together and you get one bright white light. Same thing happens with sound. So again, here's our last voice. And you notice that really, all these different levels make up the individual characteristics, right? All these different frequency bands at different amplitudes make up the characteristic sound that you're hearing. So at this first peak, which is our fundamental 185, you can see I've set up each track here to represent and show us or play a sine wave at each one of these frequencies. And I've also measured out the amplitude of each one to reflect close to what you see here in the voice. Okay, so have a listen. Let's just stack it up. So here's the fundamental. Okay, here's the octave above it. And in every voice, that first partial was much louder than the fundamental, which I thought was very interesting. Now here's the fifth, moving up to the octave. And this is where we had that big dip, right? Here's that big dip right in here. So it's a lot lesser volume. Barely a little bit of that third. We'll take it back out again. And pump it up so you can hear it just slightly. You know what I'll do though is actually, let's get rid of these so you can hear it in isolation. Barely hear it. Bring it back down to 0. Let's get the other ones back in. Okay, moving up to 110, which will be the next so above the tonic. Take it out, put it in. There's the te, the octave. There's that really present G sharp that we kept hearing. In Mr. Hayden's voice, we really hear that A sharp pop out. That's that zygomatic ring that we get. I think it's right around the 1850 hertz. And I think that is also very present in Mr. Hayden's voice. So, pretty cool. Let me take these away. And we're back down to nothing. Here are these individually, just in case you want to hear them individually and you missed them the first go around. Fundamental, first partial, second partial, third, fourth partial, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and then skipping way ahead here, we went from, oh sorry, what was that, 9th or 10th up to 20th, because that was what was present in this voice. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration of the Overtone series in some of our men's choir voices.